Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah. Bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. We are on ayah number 6. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, Inna alladhina kafaru sawa'un alayhim a'anzartahum am lam tunzirhum la yu'minun. Indeed, those who made kufr, then it is equal. Whether you warn them or whether you do not warn them, they will not believe. Some of the key words in this ayah. Kafaru from kufr. It means to conceal something originally, or cover something, and it has come to mean an ingrate, because the kafir is the one who covers the favors done to him. So the one who rejects Islam covers the favors that Allah is bestowing upon him. And the word kufr is often used as the opposite of shukr. In takfaru fa inna Allah ghaniyun ankum wa in tashkuru yardahu lakum. If you make kufr, then Allah has no need of you. But if you make shukr, then He will be pleased with you. He also says, La yu'minun. We have discussed previously what iman is. Now in this ayah there is an ishkal. If Allah says that the kuffar are not going to believe either way, whether you give them da'wah or not, then we ask, what is the point of giving da'wah to the kuffar? And the answer is that this ayah speaks of those kuffar who are mu'anid, meaning they are completely stubborn, and they will absolutely not believe. However, there are those kuffar as well who will believe if the da'wah is given to them. So the point is that this ayah is speaking about certain types of kuffar. And even if all the kuffar were mu'anid or stubborn, da'wah would still be an obligation upon us. Why? Because we need to establish the evidence against them, and then besides it's our job to propagate this deen, because if we love this deen, we need to share it with others. Just like if you love your food, then you share it with others, and that is seen as a virtuous action. And so from this we may extract a vital fa'idah, which is that do not be disheartened when the people reject your da'wah to tawheed. Allah Jalla wa Ala has already told us that there are going to be people who will simply be impervious to the call of Tawheed. We may also take another fa'idah, that those of the Muslimin who are not affected by the speech of Allah Jalla wa Ala and by the preaching of the deen, such as for example an imam giving a maw'idah or preaching, then if such people are unaffected by this preaching, then they have a resemblance to the kuffar. Why is this? Because the kuffar are unaffected when they are called to the goodness of Tawheed, and also when they learn of the teachings of the deen of Islam, they remain unaffected. And the reason is because the heart has a seal on it, so they are unable to see, hear and understand the truth and guidance. Just as we find in the next ayah, let's read it. Ayah number 7. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ وَعَلَى سَمْعِهِمْ وَعَلَى أَبْصَارِهِمْ غِشَاوَةٌ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and on their hearing, and on their eyes there is a covering, and theirs will be a great torment. So the seal being spoken of here is obviously not a physical seal that you may find on letters and so on. The kings of the olden days would have their own unique seal that they would put on a letter, indicating that it's from them. Obviously not a physical seal, but it is some type of seal which renders them unable to understand the truth. So we find from this ayah that your taqwa and your guidance is in the heart, not in the brain. Notice this ayah does not even mention the brain. The Arabic is dimagh. It does not mention that. So these kuffar are as good as deaf, because if your hearing and your vision does not allow you to detect the truth, then what good is it? And Allah Jalla wa Ala does call these people deaf and blind, even though they are not biologically deaf and blind. However, one may object here and say, well, if Allah Jalla wa Ala has sealed their heart, then how do you expect them to have Iman. It is not their fault that they are kuffar then, is it? We say that Allah Jalla wa Ala does not seal people's heart as a dhulm, meaning to say, seal your heart and then expect you to believe. And of course you will not be able to believe. So that is the same as saying that Allah Jalla wa Ala forces people not to believe. That would be dhulm, if He then punishes them for not believing. No, the way to understand it is from Surah As-Saff, where Allah Jalla wa Ala says, فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُم. When they deviated, Allah deviated their heart. So sealing their heart or deviating their heart is as a result of their stubbornness and choosing kufr over Iman. It is not the case that they were born with their hearts sealed. So in fact we may say that Allah Jalla wa Ala sealing your heart is actually Him punishing you in this world. So a punishment does not have to be physical torment. The greatest punishment you can have in this world is to have your heart sealed, because the result of this will become manifest in the hereafter, as you increase in your deviancy and your kufr because of your sealed heart. That is in and of itself a punishment. So if understood like that, it does make sense. And then we may conclude that Allah Jalla wa Ala is not oppressing anyone, rather simply administering justice. Then in ayah number 8 and 9, Allah Jalla wa Ala turns His attention to the munafiqeen. He says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And in ayah number 9, يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَمَا يَخْدَعُونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They are trying to deceive Allah and the believers, but in fact they only deceive themselves whilst they perceive not. So these people spoken of are the munafiqun who appeared after the Battle of Badr in the Medina period of the Prophet's life. They outwardly displayed Islam in terms of their deeds and their actions, but their hearts harbored plain and clear-cut kufr. Reflecting, we may take that belief in Allah and the last day is an absolute condition to be a mu'min. We also take how the Quran organizes certain people. We began the surah talking about the mu'mineen and some of the characteristics of the people of taqwa, and now He speaks about the people of nifaq. We may also take that a mu'min is only the one whose outward appearance reflects his inward appearance, and vice versa. So outwardly he displays Iman, and inwardly he harbors Iman. This is a real mu'min. The ayah says that they are deceiving Allah, which means they are trying to deceive Allah, and they are trying to deceive the mu'mineen by outwardly appearing to be Muslim, but inwardly they are with the kuffar. But Allah Jalla wa Ala says they only deceive themselves. How so? Because they perform acts of salah, and they make an effort to be seen of the Muslimin, and all this effort of theirs is going to go to waste, and they will be humiliated in this world and in the akhirah. So it is like this, they are deceiving their own selves, because they have no idea of the evil repercussions of their actions. Had they known, they would have refrained from nifaq. We may also take from this ayah a fa'idah that evil actions can completely blind you of insight. Because we see here, the munafiqun are carrying out their evil actions and they are blinded to the insight. In other words, they are blinded to the fact that they are only deceiving their own selves. So the fa'idah is that if you want to be a person of insight, who can see the reality of matters, any matter of this world, then be a person who avoids evil actions. Evil actions will blind you to the reality of affairs. Let us take the next ayah, number 10. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. In their hearts there is a disease, and Allah increases them in their disease. And for them there is a painful torment because of their lies. Okay, the key word here is qulub, plural of qalb. Qalb in the Arabic language means to turn. And this is because the heart turns and changes. It is fairly volatile. Sometimes you're doing righteous deeds, sometimes you're doing evil deeds. Sometimes you love, sometimes you hate. It changes and is quite volatile. So this is where the word qalb comes from. It is always changing. So this is why it is incredibly important to make dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala to keep your heart firm and steady. So in their hearts there is a disease, that's the disease of kufr. It's the worst disease possible. So we're not talking about a biological disease. We're talking about more of a spiritual disease. And then he says that Allah increases them in their disease. This is similar to what we talked about, that when they deviated, Allah deviated their hearts. So it is not that Allah Jalla wa Ala forcefully puts the disease of kufr in their hearts and then will punish them for it. No, rather, Allah Jalla wa Ala punishes them for their kufr by increasing them in their kufr and in their doubts. The disease of the hearts is of two types, shahwa and shubha. Shahwa is desires, when you know what is right, but your desires overcome you and you commit the evil. Shubha is when you have certain specious arguments which convince you that the truth is actually falsehood. And this is worse. It is the type of disease that the people of bid'ah from the Muslimin suffer from, which is why they will never make tawbah, because they believe they are on the right path. And it is the same thing with many kuffar as well. They have this shubha. They truly believe that they are on the right path, and that Islam is backwards and not fit for the modern day. And note how he says, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ, and they will have a painful torment, meaning it is exclusively for them. Notice the word bima, which translates to because of what. So this shows us that there is a cause and effect. The cause is the kufr, and the effect of that is the punishment. Cause and effect. It's just that there is a group of the Muslimin who deny cause and effect. He says, بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْذِبُونَ, because they used to lie. What is their lie? Their lie saying that we are Muslimin, when in fact they are kuffar. In another qira'ah, it says, بِمَا كَانُوا يُكَذِّبُونَ, because they used to belie. And this would be belying the Prophet's message. Just like all the other kuffar belie the Prophet's message, and they refuse to accept. We may also take that sins can increase in grade and decrease just like righteous deed and iman, because Allah Jalla wa Ala says, فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا, Allah increases them in their disease. So iman and kufr both can increase and decrease. We may also take the evil nature of lying in that it leads to evil consequences. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.